Hi, Valerie. How you doing? Okay, so it looks like you placed your grid lines over your um, compositions, and that's good. It's good. You're showing me that you're using the grid, and you're attempting to use the grid to create some alignment and some hierarchy, and that's fantastic because I'm seeing a lot of students are designing without grid, even in this assignment that requires designing with a grid. So I want to mention that you have laid a grid over your work. However, you're not using the grid correctly. And I'll go over that. So, and then I also want to mention, boy, I've been taking a long time on these videos because it's so important. So if you need to take two sessions to watch this, I'm probably going to go about 10 minutes because it's really that important to me. Valerie, it really is. A lot of students are doing good stuff, and a lot of students are really know what they're doing conceptually, but it's the execution is a little bit short of the objectives, and I'll explain why. Okay, so just bear with me, and this will all make sense in a few minutes. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is that this looks like this was assembled manually. I'm not sure how you assembled these different compositions. You got four squares that are 5 by 5 inches, right? And so presumably you've got a 5 by 5 grid, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you've got inch on each one, 5 by 5 grid, 5 inches by 5 inches. So your grid is actually delineating the inch marks of the composition. It's not set up as a grid per se. Okay, so how do we set up a grid per se? You can use this as a grid. However, you know what? I'll get into the grid in 1 second. I want to keep my train of thought here because one thing I noticed is that I don't know if this was assembled digitally, and it's really difficult to tell. And let me show you why. See the rich blacks here that digitally, see how black everyone's background is. Now everyone did this digitally, and then I got to yours and I was like, okay, Valerie did something different here, obviously using the grid lines. That's fantastic. But why is the background so light in color? And I'm thinking, and then another thing is that if we I'm going to take my trusty ruler. I've been using this. So you've been watching videos. You see I've been using my little ruler here because we're not submitting as PDFs. I think if I teach this, when I teach this class again, I think I would have students turn these in as PDFs so that we can measure and do some alignment things and stuff much easier. Let me know what you think about that, if that's a good idea. So I'm going to place my ruler here right at the top of this guy right here, and we can see that the top of that isn't straight. Okay, and then we can clearly see that this isn't straight and it's not in alignment over here. Okay, conversely, we go to the bottoms here, and again, we see I'll place that right at the corner of that bottom right there. So, and then we can see that they're not straight either. Okay, then we come over here, and those are better, and those look good. But then if we go to our vertical, and hold on 1 sec. Come on. There we go. Okay, so you'll see some of my history notes in here, but that's okay. Okay, so I go to the vertical, and I can see that if I place that at the bottom, you can see that top right there, it's protruding that straight edge right there. So again, that's not straight. Let's try this side. Okay, that side looks much better, but again, I'm even with the bottom, but you can see some of the top here peeking out. So that was my main, well, not my main concern. That was one of my concerns about the way that the file was set up. Let me know what you did here. I'm really interested to know. Okay, as far as the grid goes, first of all, again, thank you so much for using the grid, and it looks like you're showing me that you're using the grid, so that's fantastic. So let's take a look at the grid first. Now, as far as the grid goes, the grid should have these double lines, okay? And you know what? If you go and take a look at the activities, if you jump over to, gosh, I can do this really quick. Let me do this really quick because I just want to jump over to our announcements area. And I just want to show you something really super quick here. I should have had this lined up for you already. Sorry about that. But here I'm going to jump into the announcements, and I'm going to go down here. And here in this welcome to week 3 typographic structure, hierarchies, alignments, and grids. I've got this thing down here, this lecture that I wrote up called How to Design Using a Grid. Actually, I didn't write this all myself. Yeah, I didn't write this. I borrowed this. I think I wrote some of it. I may have embellished it, but no, this is from a source. So I included this mini lecture, but I included this video on how to set up a grid. See those little double lines? And those come into play, and you'll see how when you watch this video. This video is Oh, it's only 6, 7 minutes long. You know how I'm kind of long-winded sometimes, and I don't mean to be. I'm trying to be really thorough. So this is only 7 minutes. Oh, hey, yay, refreshing. So, and then I've got these examples down here too of how to use. And these would be really perfect for your to set up your grid because they're 3x3 grids on basically a square, which would resemble a 5x5. Okay, so instead of using 5x5 delineating the inch marks, okay, this is using a 3x3. And then I want you to notice something. See this outer area right here on the grid. Okay, so the grid doesn't go all the way to the corner of the page, as you'll see, again, as I said, you'll see in this video here. And watch this. It really shows exactly how to set up and use the grid. But in the grid itself, we would go, where was I? Oh, back to your page. Now, in the grid itself, these intersections right here are very important because those will mark your alignment, and those will really, really establish the hierarchy, the alignment of the page, proximity alignment hierarchy. Okay, so for instance, what you would do here is you would have this, and I want to go back to that example. Did I close it? Darn it. This is probably why my videos take so long, because I'm trying to find stuff and I never remember to keep it open. So sorry again. Okay, so anyway, here we have, so these little areas right here. Okay, so you see that margin right there. This document has an outer margin. I just happen to have the grid lines extending beyond the outer margin. Okay, so this example doesn't. Okay, so this interior grid would start right there, allowing for the margin. So that way, when you place stuff in the that way when you Apple boy, wow, I miss my old Apple machines. What happened to Apple? Okay, so all right, so here we are. Where was I? Okay, hold on one second. I gotta grab my train of thought. Hold on one second. So sorry about that. I get mad at Apple sometimes, even though Apples are obviously they're fantastic machines, always have been, always will be. But sometimes they add those like different things, like, you know, if you reach up to the corner, some different things happen. And I have mine pretty much set up, but sometimes some surprises happen and they kind of throw me off a little bit. So sorry about the timeout. All right, so anyways, back to the grid. Now, again, I was talking about these intersection lines and how you place things in here. Now, what you've done here is you've kind of, you don't have that. It looks like you have that imaginary outside margin, but it looks like this area here is less than this area here. It might be an illusion, I don't know, could be. But this area here is definitely not holding a margin. See, right there, you're right up to the corner here, or up to the edge of the page. Likewise here, but then here your alignment starts in over here, and here it ends here. So you're out of alignment there, which means you're not adhering to the grid. And we can see that in a couple of other areas. Now, in order for the grid, you would have, okay, to make this work, you would just take your outer margin, okay, and adjust those square sizes to fit all within the outer margin. Then you would use that outer margin as your guide here, all right? And then you would use something within here. In these intersections is where you would place your elements. And that would create mathematical harmony. So that is my little mini lecture to add to the video that you watched. Now watch that video, Valerie. It's really super important. If you don't get it the first time, watch the video again, okay? This is really important stuff in graphic design. This is using a grid, so that's why I'm taking so long on it. Okay, let's go to hierarchy. Hierarchy, let's see that. Now first, design, you're going to use the same point size and weight, and no contrast will be used, can be used, which you didn't do, and all hierarchy must be established by established by grouping information. All right, so do we have hierarchy in this piece right here, Valerie? And the answer is, well, we have some natural hierarchy because in America, in the West, we start the document at the upper right and we read across and read down. So, and that's just how we learn to read, and that's how we read in the West. So yes, there is some hierarchy based on position. Presumably, this is more important than this because it's listed first, okay? Other than that, there's no hierarchy here. And let me tell you why. The reason why is because there's every space between your subjects is equal, and they all fall on equal alignment. So everything is equal other than the fact that we naturally start up here, giving this more precedence and hierarchy and working down, okay? So there is a natural hierarchy. We'll call it hierarchy by gravity, but there's no hierarchy established. In other words, there's no groupings, and this says to changes in space, right? So these are changes in space. These are groupings, and this is a wonderful way to create hierarchy. Let's look at the difference between this piece and this piece. And I know I'm not going to skip this one. I'll go right back to this one in a second. But if we look at this one and this one is just, okay, what as a viewer, I'm going, okay, what do you want me to look at? Here I'm going, okay, I know what you want me to look at. You want me to look at this, okay? And then presumably you want me to look here, here, then here. This is good hierarchy. You're showing the viewer a roadmap of where to go first, second, third, and fourth. All right, back to this piece. Now, have you created hierarchy here? Basically, you have, yes, by changing the scale and the weight of the topic. All right, but your subtopics still don't really have any hierarchy other than that hierarchy by gravity, as I called it before. There's still no subgroups here. Now, over here, we're starting to get into some really, really good hierarchy. This is good. However, I think I'm not crazy about the fact that you have corner, corner, middle, and then bottom middle. So basically, I think the negative space in this is kind of being compromised a little bit by being boring. And let me show you an example of good negative space. And I'm not saying anybody's work is any better than anybody else's. I'm just using this for comparison. This is a wonderful example of good negative space. So you got all this wonderful area over here. Then you've got the main typographic composition, and you got these two subsections, and then you have this stuff that falls into subsections that really creates this wonderful hierarchy. I mean, I know exactly where this is the most important, these are the second most important, and these two are the third most important, right? So that is a really good use of negative space. Like here we see centered. Anytime you have centered alignment, just keep in mind it's not the most interesting thing. Symmetry is not good in design. It's boring, and the reason it's boring is because it creates these symmetrical negative spaces. So instead of having these really cool kind of negative spaces to assist you with your design, you kind of have these equal symmetrical negative spaces. Okay, we see the same thing here because this is centered and so is this. Okay, so this has pretty good hierarchy naturally because of the gravity I was talking about, but again because you've delineated by grouping, by text and scale, and then of course by scale and sorry, by size and weight right up there. Okay, all right, so I'm at 12 minutes. I want to cut this short. So just keep doing what you're doing. Read that grid stuff and really think about how these intersections work and how they create this mathematical harmony within pages. Okay, I think that's all I have. The work is good. Let me know what's going on with the setup and if this is digital or if you did this manually. I'm really curious. But really good job. I mean, you understand hierarchy. You're getting there, definitely. Okay, so good job. Let me know if you have any questions at all. All right, thanks, Valerie.